jobs than under the current system that is of extraction and exploiting the natural resources. She also talked about mobilizing and helping our people have a voice. Everybody has a voice, whether it's with their words, their songs, their prayers, their stories. We are made of a creative resistance here. And always to remember our youth and our elders. I'm thankful there are so many youth and elders here today because they're our next generation. We take our teachings from our elders and thankful for our loved ones and dear ones here, for Grandma Anna, for our other elders here, Patsy, and our loved ones and dear ones who came far to be here. Some of the next steps we talked about is Sylvia encouraged us to have actions at least once a month and come together and united on global days of action, of which there are some works coming up here in Seattle on the 21st, starting at Westlake at 3 o'clock, going to SSA Marine. And also I'll be, there's another day of action on the 23rd in the honor of the Worldwide Water Day at Golden Gardens in Seattle from 1 to 4. We're going to be focusing on the coal trains, tar sands, and tankers, and having speakers from Lummi, Protect the Sacred, and what do you call that? Backbone Campaign. So you're all invited to those events if you can make it. One thing we also would like to remember, and as people who've been suffered from colonization and oppression, is let's put that lateral oppression behind us and remember to hold each other up in a good way. Because we're all in this together. It's time for unity and peace and to continue this resistance and united in solidarity. And one last thing we had mentioned was the support. All the good work our sisters are doing in the North, they need our help too. So I encourage you to go to their Idle No More website and make donations to them or help them in the work that they're doing. Because they're helping us and leading us and united, inspiring us in such a good way. So I just want to raise my hands today to my sister here and thank her for coming here and helping us today. Good night, Chief. Thank you.
That's kind of goofy. Thank you. What I heard them say is that we need to be active spiritually engaged, physically actively going out and doing things, emotionally being prepared to deal with people's of different understanding, and being mentally engaged to learn and be willing to learn new things. Does that kind of sum it up? Excellent. Our next group moving around the table, is that Patricia? Patricia Whitefoot? You look like a small group but intense. My anti-nitroglycerin over here. Mercedes.
And your daughter?
Could they close that door?
So I'd like to speak about those of us that are in classrooms, working with our children in the schools from early childhood on to higher education. Part of the work that I do involves not only working, with our tribal community, but also with non-Native school administrators, non-Native teachers, and a lot of the work involves educating the non-Native community who may live on our lands and live around us and our neighbors. And so I know as each one of you go around the room and talk about, the positions or the actions you want to take, I would urge and encourage all of us to reach out and begin some form of educating the public. Because it's been a long road in educating the non-Native public. It's a daily activity that has to go on. It's daily education that goes on with people in my community and people in your community, and even educating members of Congress, which I've had the good fortune of doing for a number of years, but it takes all of us working together. And I'm pleased to be here today because I have the opportunity to have a grandchild that is here, one of my grandchildren, but also a nephew that is here representing our sons, and Mercedes representing daughters. I have children and grandchildren who cover, I always say, the western states, including Hawaii. When we think about the diversity of our families, even though I'm a Yakima tribal member, what Bureau of Indian Education schools has kind of diversified the land. And so, and along with that, we also have the military, because our children are part of the military, and so the BIA boarding schools and the military community, and just the opportunity to be able to travel more, our community and our tribal families become more diverse. And I think we need to pay attention to that as well. I've asked one of our parents to come up and speak. I had the wonderful opportunity to listen to a student and some educators and just learn from them, but also because I have a responsibility to write a report to Congress, and also have a responsibility to help write and shape a report to Secretary Duncan at the Department of Education. So I'm always trying to listen as well. What are people saying when it comes to working on the statutes or the legislation that we're working on behalf of our Native students from preschool on up to adult education? So I'm going to ask you to listen to what Mercedes has to share, because it's about reclaiming who we are and re-engaging ourselves intentionally around language, culture, and history.
Good afternoon, my name is Mercedes Atkins. I'm glad everybody could make it here today. We discussed education and language and the importance it is, and why we need to reclaim it and figure out how we're going to take these next steps to help revitalize our languages in our own communities. Currently we're teaching language classes at Priest Rapids, and it's been going good. I've been teaching for 12 months now. We bring in elders twice a week, and it feels good seeing the younger kids speak the language, and then you have the older generations looking at them like, what are you saying? So what we're trying to figure out is how we're going to get more parent participation, because that's ultimately how our languages are going to survive. And so I'm helping co-teach with 3 elders, and I was talking to Patsy about the Washington State Sovereignty curriculum, and I wanted to learn more about it and who's all teaching it, and if there's a group that I could network with so could learn and just learn from each other and network with other public school teachers. Currently we're just teaching in the community, but in the future we'd like to move towards teaching in the public schools, because we have a lot of Native students in the public schools, but we don't have any Native teachers in there. And so ultimately just trying to take control of the school systems and figure out how we're going to be able to get in there and teach what we want to teach. And so our history and culture is also being shared not only with our own Native students, but the other cultures that are there in the school districts. So there's a lot of steps that need to be taken, so we're just trying to figure out how we're going to go about that to start networking with more Washington State education, the education system, and the teachers. And that's all.
You want to say anything?
Can I introduce yourself?
If you can introduce her, go ahead and introduce her. You can introduce her.
This is Titi Wyatt. This is my daughter, Titi Wyatt Buck. She's Wanapum in Caldwell, and she's 6 years old, and she she was lucky. She had the privilege to be raised by her grandfather, Watiaushalik. So she was raised with Wanapum as one of her first languages. So she was able to speak with her grandfather, and I couldn't understand what they were saying. So that pushed me to want to learn more, so I could be able to understand and speak with them.
Thank you. And so in closing, this is some of the work that we're doing, but I thought another important aspect to the work that we're doing in education, not only reclaiming and rebuilding our capacity in our tribal communities, is bringing parents along, community members along, but also educating non-Native teachers about our sovereignty curriculum, about our history, so that they can help impart that to our children in our schools. And one of the other elements that we're talking about is because of the oppression that was talked about earlier. There is so much oppression that has occurred amongst Native people that it really takes us to be able to work on our own healing and our own wellness. And so there was a recommendation for adults to even go through training on healing and wellness, because so much has been piled on all of us when we were children in our communities, that we really have to work through that oppression and the institutional oppression that many of our elders talk about in our community. So I'm pleased to be here today with you, and pleased that Maria has been facilitating this, because this is based on work that we've done around healing and prevention in our tribal communities with the gathering of Native American curriculum that was worked on, years ago with elders who continue to do the work around language culture revitalization. So thank you.
Don't forget your cedar. We have to make sure that we that everybody gets to take some cedar to honor the good work that you did. It's kind of that reciprocity, giving back to each other and recognizing when you go home with your cedar, you'll remember the work that, one, that you chose to do, two, that you've been picked to do, and three, your responsibility to the cedar and the cedar's responsibility to you. Because the reality is, and I heard this in different groups, hearing you, when you do this work, it's sacred work. And when you do sacred work, there might come a time when you get tired, or you feel overwhelmed, or you saw something that was just startling to your spirit, or you heard something that just made your heart ache. And that's when you use the cedar either to brush yourself off with water, or just brush yourself with the cedar, or if it's already dry, then you take and burn some, so that you're always taking care of yourself, and like a cedar, replenish yourself to continue to do the work. And it's important that when you do this work, that you are nourishing yourself spiritually, so you have the capacity to do this work. Do you understand what I'm saying? Thank you. I want to thank Patricia, my teacher, for talking how she did, and I'm glad that you're reminding us that sometimes our teachers, we're talking about education in school, that our teachers are the little ones. And I want to thank, lift my hands up to Mercedes for saying that she was encouraged by her child to reclaim the language and to come out of her comfort zone to learn another language so she could be more effective in her cross-cultural communication. So we're going to continue around the room. Whoever wants to go ahead and speak, come on up, claim your space, and start talking. Miss Noel. Miss Noel. I wanted to call her Christmas. So, and then Chris after her. You want to go after her? Thanks.
Thanks again for having me here today. And I had some great conversations. I was working mostly on a one-on-one basis, talking to folks about running for office. Was very heartened to hear not only some of the folks I talked to are interested in running, but there were folks at home that they wanted to take our flyers back to and encourage them to run. You know, one of the things I was reflecting on and remembering this morning, I actually had the privilege of going to the AT&I conference down in Coos Bay a couple of years ago, and Teresa Sheldon from the Tulalip tribe was talking to me about politics in Indian country, and she reminded me, she said, you know, when you say running for office, most people in our community think about tribal council, right? And so I think from where I'm coming from, I'm thinking of state and local office, but I forget, you know, that in Indian country, that's really about tribal council, first and foremost. And one of the things that I've been so, it's been so interesting to learn over the last 3 years I've done this work, is that the mechanics aren't too different. And as I talked to folks today, they were expressing not only are they maybe interested in state and local government, but also in tribal government. And so I would tell you that the work that we do, our leadership development program, learning the mechanics of politics, please, if there are people in your network that you think should be running for a leadership position, whether that's state or local or tribal office, this is still a program that they can benefit from. And, you know, frankly, it's a good thing to have good leaders, both in tribal government and state and local. So if you did not get a flyer, I've still got more in the back. I have to be somewhere at 4 o'clock, but I'll be back in the back of the room up until the moment I need to leave, and would be happy to talk to folks. Thank you so much again for letting me be here today. I enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
Actually, Maria, I think I had the smallest group because, you know, we're a little unknown asset to, but we are filled with a lot of enrolled tribal members' labor. But I had the privilege of talking to a lot of people in this room individually, and a lot of people that have interest in both not only the environment, but the actual raising up of all of our people spiritually and economically, but doing so in balance and keeping it in the circle, and observing our sovereignty and making sure that when we do things, we do that in a good way for all people. And we lead by example for people that don't understand our ways. So I want to raise my hands to all of our elders that are here in teaching not only myself, but everyone about our culture and then our progressiveness, that any country is the next economic engine that this nation needs to rebuild itself. Because this nation, within this nation of labor, community, our environment, has to depend on its culture first. So I had a lot of great conversations with everybody, and I was able to talk about some of the things that we've done at Puyallup Tribal Employment Rights Office, about teaching non-native contractors before they come to our reservations about how to, actually when they come in a good way, and they want to sit down, and we're putting on tribal synergy training for non-native business, so that when they work with our people and with our nations, they observe that first. So, like I said, I wanted to raise my hands in respect of everyone here and everyone that was here today, and for the songs and for the drumming, and for those that have traveled, a special blessing and a thank you for the cedar, and that you find your way home and you take care of this good word and this message. Aho.
Good afternoon. It's good to see everyone here today. I'm really glad to have been able to participate in this Native Lobby Day. I learned a lot, met a lot of nice people, and I'm really glad that we got a ride. I'm glad Daryl, raise your hand, he drove us. And our group here, we're talking about Indian Child Welfare Act. And there's, like I was saying earlier, many issues that our children are dealing with. I've been volunteering with children for 40 years, and I have 7 children and 10 grandchildren. I have a few of my grandchildren that are in the system now, so this comes really close to my heart when I'm finding out some of the things that we have to go through when we're in the courtrooms. And so I'm happy to say that Kathy, and we have Celeste, I'm sorry, I just met her today, just earlier, my cousin Susie Sakayaka, and there was Ed, he was another one that worked with us. So, and the reason why we came to was because of Margie Wells and what she had expressed, what she had went through. And you know, there's many parents that right now that I could count on my hands and toes that are going through the same type of issues, and that's just families that are close by. So there really needs to be some attention drawn to the ICW. And so here's some of the things that we had come up with, and Celeste, would you like to go on from here?
First of all, I'd like to take a moment, if everybody could just close your eyes real quick. By raising your hands, can you think about anybody in your family that's been affected? Any children that have been taken from your home, or any of your cousins or your aunts or uncles that have been taken and placed in the ICW or put into foster care? I'd like you to raise your hands. If you guys can open your eyes. All these people sitting around you have been affected by this, myself included, my grandson. So we were sitting back here. This is something that touches me. As we know, there's some flaws within the system. Some aspects that we came up with, the foster care, as you know, it's a case by case. There's a sensitivity with it. Upholding cultural sustainability for each and every child's healthy indigenous teaching is one aspect. Develop precise criteria for clients and their children involved in the program to enhance the natural relationships of the children. One is to think about the placement of the child. We thought about the primary placements and the format of the placements. One being for the courts to look at the mother and father primarily. With that, an exception, which the courts seem to overlook at times, is thinking about each sides of the family. As we discussed earlier, sometimes the Native kids are put into non-Indigenous families. So we thought about the children going to see grandmothers and grandmothers from the mother side, as well as the grandmothers from the father side. So looking at those two aspects and so on. So going down from the list, the genealogy from both sides of the family. And of course, that's a case by case, because as you guys know, sometimes family members have issues too. So another aspect would be mandatory networking between the foster guardians and all parties that desire to be involved with the child. Become more educated for the foster guardian, becoming more educated on WAC laws as well as lawyer jargon. As we know, lawyers could go on with their format, and they love to get us confused. As well as federal laws, which seem to change as the years go on. As well as we know that within the tribes, every tribe not necessarily has some have constitution, some have bylaws, some have ordinances, and so on and so on. So we had mentioned networking with a lawyer that has credentials that can reference every tribe's, depending on the case by case, so that they can help facilitate these specific constitution laws and stuff to help the clients better. Bottom line, what does this mean? We need individuals that can help assess these clients, because we sure in the heck know that the state is not doing a good job. If you guys in this room know of anybody that's a lawyer that can help us network and get in touch with these people, let us know. We need pro bono, if possible. But bottom line, we need the tribes to support these children and their families and get these children back.
Thank you, Robert, wherever you are, let's see, for the invitation to be here, Robert.
Oh.
And my kids at my middle school love your show. I had to throw that in. We listened to it on our lunch break.
Yeah.
We did, Woodford Middle School. Shout out. We'll be listening tomorrow in the health room. Anyway, I'm really happy that my friend, Sister Margie, came with us today and shared her story. She shared it with me personally a few months ago when it unfolded, and it was really hard for her to come. She didn't think she could do it, and she texted and said she couldn't make it. And we said, we will be there, we'll stand with you, we will come and get you. And we were there at 7:30, and she looked out the window, and there we were. I said, come on, Margie. Your story needs to be heard, and I want to thank Margie. I know she had to go, but this is for Margie for sharing her story. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
And I'll just speak from right here that it was really awesome that they had the elder that was working with them, just come and sit with them, keep them in line over there. And we need that. We need our accountability. What was great is that they created a list, also how they're going to stay in touch with each other. So that is awesome. And they already did it. They have the list. They're going to be ready to go. So, Mr. Buck.
Come on, Dave.
Thank you all for taking the time. I had a couple of people in the group early on in the session we had, and then I went to visit some of our senators to talk about the issues that we're talking about. But the discussion I had is the importance of our youth and the investment we need to make in them, because they're our leaders now and they're going to be our leaders tomorrow. We need to educate them on so that they understand the generational trauma that we've sustained. They need to understand why we have gangs, why we have alcohol and drugs, and all of the bad things, the violence, the broken families, because we didn't have that prior to contact. We had a culture and a history that enhanced the individual. We had over 14,000 years of it, and that's 600 to 700 generations of people who sustained our languages and our cultures and just our whole society here in Indian country. The process that we're going through with the affiliated tribes of Northwest Indians and the relationship it has with our youth is going to be a long process to identify some of these strengths and these weaknesses within each tribe. To me, we're going to need to do a self-assessment of each tribe. We're going to need to develop an elaborate database where we can take all of this information and use it to our advantage. It's a lot of work that needs to be done. We're building off of the ideas and the work that a lot of our elder leadership has already put, but we still have a long ways to go to ensure that we have sustainable Native communities here in our region. Where I come from, the work I do in my community is with language revitalization and culture revitalization and mentoring our youth. And just some of these things are really easy to do, and it starts in our own personal lives when we see our youth at risk. We got to speak up to them, offer them knowledge, and offer them guidance. And sometimes it's easy as just saying, nice job for getting to school today, or these small victories, because we're at an unequal disadvantage to the greater society. I've been exposed to some of the most prestigious communities in our nation here, and I see what they have developed. They're starting at a young age. They're teaching them the things that they want, the education they want them to learn, and that's what we need to be modeling. We need to model that sovereignty over our own education, that sovereignty over our own youth. We need to model within our own lives that self-determination, so that they see it, that we're doing the things that we need to do to ensure that we're positive role models for them, because they're always listening to us, they're always watching us. So I appreciate Robert and Holly for their feedback and the discussion that we had. I'm going to take this and add it to our roundtable results, and this will go in directly to the strategic planning process that we have with the ATNI Youth Committee. So I thank you all, and it was an honor to be a part of this space.
It's good to see all of you here. Thank you. My name is Anita Latch, and it's so gratifying to be able to report that I went out with folks from 3 different legislative districts to track down their representative senator, that is. This is the first time in the 3 years that I've been doing this that I've been able to go to beard the lion in its den, so to speak. So I'm extremely gratified. We took a few people up to see Jim Hargrove, and he was out on the floor doing the work of the state, and his legislative aide was out of the room, so we left a message and went and sat in the gallery. And that was the last stop that we made before coming back here. But I think it really illuminated for some of the people with me what's going on and how they do business. Because not everybody that was in the Senate voting was actually in their seat. Some of them actually popped literally into the room to vote, or you could kind of hear this yay or nay from some corner we couldn't see. It was kind of comical, and I think that if you know anybody who went to see a senator today, you should ask them about it. Johnny went with me to see Curtis King, and that's really important because Johnny lives in the 14th Legislative District, and Curtis is somebody we're going to need to have to get some of those bills through the Senate. Today is the last day they get out of the House, and so those bills, most of the bills that Johnny wanted to talk about were House bills, and the Senate won't get them until tomorrow. But Johnny got the card of his legislative aide for his senator, so now he has a relationship with that legislative aide. He can email him, he can call him. By golly, most of these reprobates have Facebook pages, and you can dog them that way, just depending on your inclination. Before we got started, Garrett and somebody else went down to the bill room, and they pulled copies of all the bills they were interested in, which turned out to be everything on that list. And so I think that people got a real hands-on education. One thing we didn't talk about was that the legislature has a website, and you can look at those bills online. You can even sign up so that they send you information every time there's... Am I getting feedback? Okay. You can get notifications every time there's an action taken, a vote taken, anything like that. There's even a place to weigh in on your disposition regarding the bill. And that's brand new this year, so I haven't used it very much. When we stopped to see Karen Kaiser, I stayed outside because they went into her little room, and there wasn't a lot of room, and they were in there for a long time. Boy, I had time to check my Facebook and everything. I think they had a very fruitful conversation. I sure hope so. Seems like she was real friendly. You did. Yeah, the legislative assistant was there, and she was very welcoming and wanted to talk about all kinds of things, right? Sherry Berry took someone down to Bob Hasegawa's room, and I'll say that whether you think that your legislator is dyed in the wool, knows your issues, got your back, you don't need to tell them, you do. They need to feel the love. They need you to go this weekend to the town hall meeting, if they're having one in your district, and you can find that out before you leave today or online. And they need you to, if they're somebody you support, you want to give them a softball. You know, give them a nice friendly question that helps them look good and shows that they're responsive to issues in Indian country. And if they're not with you, or if you're not sure you can rely on them, then play hardball and ask them the tough questions in public and hold them to it. Let them know that you were down here today. They heard the drumming in the rotunda. So, like I said, it was very gratifying to be able to take people out. You can come and do this anytime during the legislative session, and I recommend that you get to know your representatives during the time that it's not in session. It gives you a lot more leverage if they have seen your face before, but there's no time to start like the present. Thank you very much.
Definitely bring your group with you.
Anybody else from the tar sands group is welcome to come up here. Thank you.
Where's the other one? He ran away.
He's right there.
Oh, front row.
Your choice. Well, thank you all for such hard work and interesting conversation and relaying that back to us and to the organizers too. We focused on the Alberta tar sands, excavations, mining, and energy transport there, and its effect on us here and globally. And that conversation had to do with not only the pipelines and the tankers, but the problem with the fish in the Athabasca River up there, where the Fort Chip people can't eat their own fish anymore. And we saw some pictures that were really horrifying, and our group, I think, experienced some grief and sadness around that, which is pretty expected when being confronted with the magnitude of this issue. And we focused then on concrete actions that we can take from ourselves to our communities to an awareness of the global unity and the actions happening all over North America and all over the world. And an example of that is right now, this week in Minnesota, the Red Lake Nation is blockading an Enbridge Corporation pipeline that was, I guess, illegally put on their land. And one of the questions was so poignant, like, how can that happen? Why is it there? It's not supposed to be. Well, it's not the company's job to really care about that. Their job is to make money. That's their stated mission, and that's what they do. And if people are not being involved in the political process like we're doing right here, right now, teaching kids to do that, then the companies will do that. And so we focused on continuing concrete ways to infuse the education of kids with exactly what we're talking about here, political skills, the savvy to preempt those things. You know, we would rather deal with pushing a corporation away before they even get there than trying to deal with the aftermath of a disaster. We talked about other actions going on right now in Texas, where there's a tar sands blockade, and this isn't something that's going to be in the news every day, but since the fall, there have been people camping out in the trees, staying up in tree forts for like a month at a time, with celebrities coming by, with presidential Green Party candidate Jill Stein came by, and lots of support from around the world for those actions. So there's concrete actions happening on the ground. For 2 weeks in 2011, over 1,200 people got arrested in front of the White House protesting the Keystone XL pipeline. And so the point in knowing that those things are happening is that people really, really, really care. We care here. People care in other communities. People care in every state. They care in all different environmental groups, education. You know, people are coming from it's really surprising, but people from the Tea Party have even been participating in the blockade. And so there's unity there in ways that are really unexpected because the problem is so big, but there's a lot of beauty in that too. We talked about concrete prevention tactics, including things we can each do, like bike more, drive less. We didn't talk about growing our own food, but that's another way to start at home. Pushing even harder for voting rights. A specific bill that was on the list that I think Chris gave earlier today is the solar power bill that's in this legislature right now. Helping tribes divest of dirty fossil fuel investments and to implement wind and solar programs. And I want to make sure I didn't miss anything that's really important to any of you, if you'd like to say.
Still thinking.
Okay, keep thinking. And we talked a little bit about this idea of they and who cares, who we are and who they are, and like this idea, it's easy to say they don't care. And breaking that down, thinking about how we've already seen this transformation where some of the most prominent people, you know, politicians who've been fighting in the legal system for 30 years are getting arrested in front of the White House now. There are people who would qualify as they, you know, like, oh, they don't care, who are doing these actions too. And it's just getting bigger and bigger. And as big as the problems are with climate change and fossil fuel waste, there's amazing solidarity across these resistance movements. So would you like to add anything?
You pretty much covered all of it. Yeah, I think you pretty much covered all of it.
Yep.
Yeah, we're done.
All right, thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Kevin Cummings. I wanted to offer up some thoughts on two things. First of all, the veterans group that was here actually accomplished some good things here. They filled out paperwork to get the VA benefits for 2 veterans while they were here today. They left early because there's one person who's been having problems for about 20 years, veteran from Vietnam, who had been resistant since it was originally turned down for benefits 20 years ago. Today he had a change of heart and decided that he wanted to meet with somebody and get the process started. What's amazing with the work that they do is he was originally turned down for the benefits 20 years ago. If they're successful, they'll get paid for all 20 years. It was the spirit was here today and did good work through them. They wanted me to share their appreciation for the welcoming that they received here, and they picked up a lot of networking, so they're expecting to hear from you. I figured I'd put that out there. As far as council fire, I was never good at following directions, so I wanted to put that out there. But we met with quite a few people. We had a mailing list over there for people to put their emails in. Currently we're going out to, I believe, all 50 states and most of the provinces in Canada. We've got people out there, and we don't have an agenda. The agenda comes from you. We just have the opportunity to open doors, and being able to share that with people. Want to again offer up my appreciation for the way we've been welcomed, and to send my most heartfelt appreciation to Robert and Liz for reaching out and accepting what we're trying to do and making us feel welcome. Wanted to also thank Senator Cantwell for sending somebody down here. I called them last week. In my other life, I deal with the legislators quite a bit, so I called and told them how important it was to be here. And she dropped what she was doing and actually wrote that note that he read, which makes it a little bit more powerful. But it's been a great day for me. Got to meet and share with all of you. But Sylvia, you're the star. I walked away from my table just to come sit by her. I'm not good at following directions. So thank you all. I really appreciate it. And I do have, I've printed out voting applications for people to register to vote. It doesn't do any good for me to take them home. So take them with you. Give them to your neighbors. Give them to the people in your tribes. There's, I believe, a couple of hundred of them sitting over there. Some people have picked up some already. But that's how we get stuff changed. That's the system that we've been given, is voting, and please, thank you.
So I would invite the rest of my group to come up here. There were 2 other people, but they've both left, so I can say whatever I want to say. But I'll be faithful to my notes. My group was about health and families, and I was with my colleague and co-coordinator, Leah Henry Tanner, who you met earlier. And then we had a third person who was an African-American gentleman who really urged us to be thinking about more about this Native presence in the political arena. And that was, it was a very interesting discussion. And we went over details about specific to our issue that we work on, which is infant mortality. And we talked about stressful life events. Like, we know that in the lives of our families and especially our mothers and our young mothers having babies, that they're experiencing more multiple stressful life events than other moms in other populations. And as we were talking about that, we also began making these connections to how if you're supporting the women who are bearing our next generations in as much as you possibly can, that you're also going to be supporting their children being ready for school by the time they enter into the school system. You're going to be supporting their health and longevity for the rest of their lives. So it's all so connected to what everybody here was talking about. We talked about some specific nuts and bolts about how in rural areas, one of the largest challenges that we face with our mothers and maternal health care is an issue of transportation to specialists if they need them, to just to have regular checkups and that kind of thing. And so we started trying to figure out, how to tackle in the public policy arena a way of helping these elected officials understand what kind of a challenge that is. We started talking about the Affordable Health Care Act and realized that, you got to have a PhD in health care reform law or something to really understand what the implications are for the people in our community. And one of the action items that we talked about was getting some interpreters, some really good interpreters that can help bring that language down to the place, or not down, but to the place where we can then understand it and carry it further into our communities so that we are served by this federal law. So let's see, there's not a lot that was different, in terms of self-care, taking care of ourselves spiritually, taking care of, when we're doing this work, just never losing sight of that. That's something when we're in workshops with pregnant women, we stop for a second and say, what is the one thing you do when you need to stop and take care of yourself? And we get usually a few people who say, I never do that. I'm busy taking care of everybody else. And so this is just a reminder, I think, that we are constantly trying to make to ourselves and to others, which is we have to take care of ourselves and our spirit. I guess the final part of this report is about, in the public policy realm, is that our governor, our brand new governor, Jay Inslee, hasn't yet released his budget proposal for the coming years. I'm not sure how that whole process works, but right now, the state funding for maternal health care seems to not be in danger in this current legislative session, but we still haven't heard from the governor, and so that's an action item that I would urge any of you who are inclined to do, is to call the governor's office and just say, from here on out, make sure that the money that's there to support our mothers and all mothers is there, because we need our babies to survive and thrive and become the citizens that we are in this room today. Thank you.
I was just going to bring you guys up to speed what's going on, just so that you know, because you're like, oh, okay, what's going on? Our intention is to finish by 4:30. We still have some work to do, and then I'll turn the floor over to Robert to make some introductions. So we have 2 more speakers, and then we'll go to our witnesses who will let us know how good or how whatever we did. And then we're going to have closing remarks by Sylvia. Her group has, she's in charge of that part. And then we'll do the final prayer and we'll go. I just wanted to give you a heads up where we're at, because in early childhood education, we have to give people benchmarks where we're at, otherwise like, what? What are we done? So Robert.
Yeah, real good. I was at this one thing before, and they had me stand up and do these exercise wheezers or energizers like that, but we're not going to do that. I appreciate everybody's patience, and we're moving right along, and a lot of good words, a lot of good things being taken care of. Thank you for your patience and tolerance, witnesses. I know it must be difficult to be, keep the recorder on like that. But I was approached by my uncle over here, Gil, doing a lot of good work for our veterans, a lot of good work, a lot of good support. And so what he has to say and is really important, it's dear to my heart and close to my heart like that. So maybe we could give him a few moments to share what's on his heart in regards to our veterans and him.
Good afternoon. I was glad that they were able to give me a couple minutes here, because
Bye, everybody.
what I want to share with you, and this gentleman back here was talking about working with your legislative people, is that that's true. We met with our House Representative Norm Johnson last year at our Veterans Dinner. And we met with him because last year in Congress they tried to pass a bill, Welcome Home Vietnam Veterans. It failed. It passed the Senate, but it wasn't even brought up in the House. So what we decided to do is that I'm with the Yakima Warriors, and my role with the Yakima Warriors is the cultural rep. And when I took that on, and I saw this part about dealing with the legislative, that looked like work. And I'm retired, I don't want to work. But at the same time, being a Vietnam veteran and watching this thing die, talked with Norm. He said if re-elected, contact him. And so I did. The problem with that is that I think there was 3 emails with no responses. So the other part I think somebody else said is call him. I did. Hung up on them because they made me mad, which probably is not the right thing to do. And when I hung up on him, he wasn't here. He was in Arizona on vacation. And I just said, to hell with it, I'll just talk with him some other time. And probably within 30 seconds, I had a call. It was Norm, and I told him, you didn't have to call me on your vacation. I says, take a time out, I'll take a time out. But he said he had enough people to, looks like they would pass this bill. And so they invited me over February 8th to testify in the House. Did that. Tomorrow morning I testify in front of the Senate. The bill passed in the House 2 weeks ago. Pardon? Oh. And that's why I was glad when you said that they took on this veteran to look at his benefits. Gee, this takes me back to my college days in Oregon, where, because I started out as a political science major in watching bills pass, dealing with different people, go to city council meetings. I kind of put that stuff aside. But this bill that we're working on, it's going to pass. I know it's going to pass. Just listening to the House and the people, and there's I don't know where the 30th district is, but there's a young lady there that she got up and spoke. Lost her husband, Agent Orange, Vietnam veteran. Lost her son, Agent Orange. Her daughter, lost an eye. lost her brother over there. And the words that were spoken are things that I think that we're still talking about